Hello and welcome back to another episode of Math with Dr. War. I have a geometry video for you which is medium emphasis. Now this video is based on proportions. So on the TASC test, you have to be able to use congruence and similarities to find the missing side of a shape if they give you two shapes. Now sometimes in the problem they might use the word similar. If you see that word similar, you know you have to use proportions to solve it. And sometimes they actually use the word proportions. Now, a proportion is basically when you have two fractions equaling each other. Or sometimes they say two ratios equaling each other. But a fraction and ratio is still the same thing. So the first question I have here, it says the diagram below shows the length and the width of a cell phone and the length of a larger version of the same brand of cell phone. The length and width of the two cell phones are proportional. So notice here they didn't use similar, they used proportional. And they're asking what is the width in inches of the larger version of the cell phone. Now if I was on the TASC test and I saw this problem where I have two shapes, one is small and one is big, they're both rectangles, then I know that this is a proportion problem because they want to know what is the width for the larger cell phone. So here's my larger cell phone and it's missing this side here. So let's call that x. To solve this, it's not very difficult. We're just going to make two fractions. So I'm going to call this number 1 and number 2. Now I call it 1 and 2 because I'm identifying basically who is my numerator and who's my denominator. So my numerator is the length, 5.4, and I'm making my denominator the width, which is 2.6. Now this is very important because when you come to make the second fraction, you have to use the same sides. So notice, I started with the length as my numerator and my width as the denominator. Therefore, for the bigger cell phone, my numerator will be the length. So that's 6.21, and my denominator is the width, which I don't know, which is x. So to solve for x, and I make this simple so you don't have to do like a lot of calculations, always remember the two numbers that are diagonal, you're going to multiply, and then that third number is what you're going to divide by. So we're going to multiply 2.6 by 6.21, and then divide that by 5.4. Now, since these are decimals, let's get our calculator. 2.6 times 6.21 divide 5.4. Now, since multiplication and division are the only two operations, the calculator will carry out order of operations correctly. So you can put the entire thing in the calculator like I did. And I'm going to hit enter. And there's my answer, 2.99. So our answer is C. Let's look at a second problem. So here it says triangle ABC and triangle DEF are similar. Now in this problem, they use the word similar. Again, when you see that word similar, I want you to think of proportions where you're going to have two fractions equaling each other. And then it says which proportion must be true. Now notice they don't want us to solve, they want us to set up the proportion. Now let me tell you, there are like probably 3 to 4 ways you can set up a proportion, and no one has time for that. So what I do is I set it up just how I always do. So looking at my triangles, the small one is the one that we're going to try to find. So I'm going to start with the big one. So again, 1, 2, which means when I go towards the smaller triangle, this would be 1 and this would be 2. So I have 6 over 7 equals 4 over x. So now we're going to try to find that. Now when you look, we don't see 6 over 7. There's no need to cross this out and start all over. If I had to solve this, it would be x equals, and remember, the 4 and the 7 have to be diagonal because you're going to multiply those and remember who we divide by. But we're not going to solve this. I just want to know who are the diagonal numbers, 7 and 4, and I'm going to look for them. Let's look at F. This says 7 and 6. Let's eliminate F. Okay, let's look at G. We have 4, we have 7. I don't care what order they're in. Notice what's diagonal here as well, 6 and X. So our answer choice is G. Triangle HJK is similar to triangle LMN. Which proportion could be used to calculate the length of LM in centimeters? So we're trying to find this. This question is a little bit different than the previous one. Notice they gave us all the sides of the triangle. What we're going to do is we're going to go through each of the answers to see which one actually makes sense. Let's look at A. Now A says 7.5, let's call that 1, is over 11.25. So you're starting with the small triangle and then you're going to the big one, which means when you make your second ratio, you have to start where? At the small. Notice where they start. They start at LM. So we can eliminate A. Let's look at B. Now B starts with 6, so they're starting here 1. And then notice the denominator is 7.5, 2. So they're starting their ratio with the small triangle. So they're going 6 over 7.5, which means that when we go to the bigger triangle, who should be first? 9. Notice who they start with, LM. We can eliminate B. Let's look at C. C starts with 11.25, so this is their 1, and their 2 is LM, so that's 2. So they're starting their ratio with the big triangle. So they're going 11.25 over the LM, which means when we start our ratio for the second triangle, who should we start with? This side here, which is 7.5. We should start here and then go to here. Notice they started with 4.5. You cannot flip-flop. This is not The Price is Right. So your answer is not C. Your answer is D. Starts with 9. So they're starting here. That's their number 1. And then their number 2 is LM. So they're going 1, 2, and they're starting with the big triangle, which means when they go to a small triangle, who should be their number 1? If they started with this, their number 1 should be this, which is 6. And then they should go here for their number 2, which is 4.5. I hope you found this helpful. Good luck on your TASC exam. And again, if you like the content, please subscribe, hit that notification button. Have a good day.